Custard is one of those sauces that is really difficult to get perfectly right, and the main problem people tend to have is that they tend to split custard, which means getting the sauce too high a temperature. And so the beauty of Juvo is you can set that maximum temperature, meaning that it will never go wrong, it will never split, and you'll end up with a great sauce every time. And then my idea was just to poach some fruit, which actually poaches the same temperature as custard cooks at. So you bring them together for a really lovely whole dish. And by putting some extra things like some orange zest in there, you could add spices, that infuses into the fruit for even more flavour. And you combine that with some creamy custard, you've got a great dessert. But then a sprinkle of crunchy granola over the top, you've got a modern take on a classic crumble. And the great thing about poaching fruit in sous vide is that they hold their shape really well, they don't tend to disintegrate, and you get really great flavour, texture and colour. And the two together just work brilliantly as a dessert. Fish works incredibly well when you're sous vide cooking, and is actually an example of how you don't have to cook low and slow for hours on end. It only takes about 20 minutes to cook a couple of fillets of fish, and salmon works really well under sous vide. It's also brilliant at picking up other flavours. So when you're cooking in a sealed bag, you can introduce things like I've used Southeast Asian flavours, like soy sauce, mirin, ginger, garlic, chilli. And because they've got nowhere to go, the flavours permeate the fish beautifully. And you end up with really well cooked fish that's perfumed with all those amazing ingredients. And then all you need to do is serve it with some really simple veg for a great meal. A great thing about cooking with Juvo is that you can create entire meals within one bag, but get loads and loads of flavour in there as well. So I've created this scallop dish, which is essentially poaching scallops in coconut milk with some great fragrances in there like lemongrass and garlic, chilies and coriander, a bit of lime juice. And all of those flavours go so well with scallops. Scallops do overcook notoriously, they're quite difficult to cook. But by setting a maximum temperature, in this case 52 degrees, the scallop's never going to overcook, it's going to poach beautifully, infused with all of those flavours, and it's ready in 15 minutes as well, so it's perfect. For me, one of the best uses of Juvo is cooking steak. It cooks it so perfectly every single time, and it's this consistency that's so important. People really struggle with steak, getting it overcooked or undercooked, but by setting the optimum temperature, and you can do all of that in the app, you can choose exactly the kind of cut you want to use, and you can choose whether you want it medium, rare, well done. It'll always be perfect every single time. And the great thing is, you can leave it in there for 1, 2, 3 hours, and it'll still stay exactly as you want it, whether you've chosen rare, medium rare, doesn't really matter at all. Now, it's great to have good texture, but what it has to come back to every single time, and particularly with steak, is flavour. And this is what Juvo does brilliantly. It renders the fat out really slowly over time, so you end up with that fat evenly distributed through the steak, and then when you finish it off in a pan afterwards, you get this amazing caramelisation and all of that flavour's in there. The steak is not exactly a cheap ingredient, so you want to make sure you nail it every time, and Juvo will do that faultlessly. The great thing about Juvo is it allows you to explore some of those interesting, sort of forgotten cuts. So I've created this recipe using ox cheek, which is a very tough piece of meat. It does a huge amount of work. Cows chew a lot. It's a very worked muscle. But because of that, it's packed full of flavour. And the only way to release that flavour is by low, slow cooking, which Juvo does perfectly. And to be able to control that consistently through cooking is really important. So you get these lovely tender fibres of meat at the end, all of the fat and all of that sort of gelatinous cartilage is broken down into a rich, unctuous sauce. Now, it only takes a few minutes prep, so just searing off the meat and vegetables, straight into a bag with some lovely red wine, and then you can seal it and forget about it. You can just cook away really gently for 8, 10, 12 hours. It's one of those dishes you can kind of do overnight and it'll be ready the next day. So for a small amount of prep, the payoff is an amazing tasting, really rich, unctuous dish. And the best part is, ox cheek is a really cheap cut, so you're getting a huge amount of flavour, but it's not costing you a load of money. These 5 recipes give you a great idea of just what Juvo is capable of. And in the app, there's loads more recipes, which show you that sous vide cooking is not just for professional kitchens anymore, but it's for use every day at home to create fantastic dishes every single time.